Now that the state of Georgia has officially codified voter suppression through the governor signing suppression legislation, the pressure is on for businesses that are headquartered in the state to do something about it, right? Now, there's public pressure for these companies to at least release a statement, possibly even move their headquarters out of Georgia based on this unconstitutional and undemocratic law. And Laura Ingraham had a huge problem with how the CEO of Coca-Cola had commented on that law during a recent interview on CNBC. Now, before we get to her statement, why don't we take a look at what James Quincey had to say?
This legislation is unacceptable. It is a step backwards, and it does not promote principles we have stood for in Georgia around broad access to voting, around voter convenience, about ensuring election integrity. And this is frankly just a step backwards.
So that's pretty much all he said. And in response to that, Laura Ingraham tweeted the following: "Patriots will choose another beverage. Big mistake by Coca-Cola. Don't poke the bear." Now, when I first read this, of course, I had the same visceral reaction that I typically do to Laura Ingraham. She's a pretty awful person. But when I actually took a step back and thought about it, yeah, that's actually pretty true. I mean, maybe not that specific claim that Laura Ingraham is making, but there is a very real reason why major companies and corporations that are headquartered in Georgia have not spoken out about the anti-democratic legislation that just got signed into law. And it's because they're looking out for their profit motive, their corporate interests, and incredibly low tax breaks, right? Or tax cuts. So for instance, I'll give you the second part of the interview featuring the CEO of Coca-Cola, where he was confronted specifically about the fact that it took him quite a while to even issue a statement about this. Take a look.
So you're clear now, James, but there are questions as to why you were not this clear after the law passed, before the law passed. I know you said you were disappointed, but why didn't you just come out publicly and oppose it before?
We have always opposed this legislation. That we have a long track record of working in Georgia with alliances on our own account, with legislators, with stakeholders to improve legislation, and we were doing so again this time.
Yeah, let me unpack that for you. They've done quite a bit of lobbying in the state of Georgia. I don't believe that they've done lobbying in regard to this piece of anti-democratic legislation that passed into law, because corporations have been part and parcel of government corruption that undermines our democratic process anyway. So Coca-Cola itself has spent quite a bit of money on elections. Here's a graph from Open Secrets that gives you a breakdown of how much money they've spent on elections dating back to 1990. And they also break it down by political party. As you can see, Coca-Cola has donated quite a bit of money to the Republican Party, but Democrats have not been discriminated against. They have also taken in donations, campaign donations from Coca-Cola as well. I tell you that because that system of legalized bribery undermines our democratic process. So why would anyone think that these corporations would care about anything undemocratic taking place in the state of Georgia? I think it's incredibly naive to think that. So demanding some empty statements from them, I think is ridiculous. Farron, what do you think?
Yeah, and yesterday though, the Georgia State House actually did something, kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because this goes along with your point. These corporations are quiet because they want their tax breaks. So what did these Republicans do? They took away the tax breaks for jet fuel from Delta. Delta that employs 33,000 people in Georgia. And they said, okay, you said something we don't like, a totally symbolic gesture that Delta put out, like, okay, we say a quick thing, we're good, we're done, we're covered. And Republicans said, okay, well, we're gonna call you out. We're gonna take away your tax breaks for your jet fuel. And now you're gonna leave Delta in a position to where, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna leave Georgia? I don't think they would really wanna leave Georgia, but they have lots of money, and Republicans are gonna come begging again next time there's an election. And I don't know how those conversations are gonna go, but I would love to be able to hear them when these Republicans say, hey, I remember the tax break thing and all that, water under the bridge, what do you got for me? Because I'm in a competitive district, I need to win, the state's turning blue, even with our suppression, what do we do? That's a lot of, one, workers from Delta who also give money, and two, the corporation itself, Coca-Cola, their employees could also find themselves in this situation. So Republicans have to tread lightly. They're the ones who created this unholy alliance, between corporations and the government, made them intertwined. And now you run the risk of pissing them off, and you need them or else you can't win. So they've put themselves in a very rock hard place type situation, and we'll see how it plays out for them.
Yeah, it is really fascinating to see how these dynamics are playing out, because understand the reason why the state of Georgia offered these massive tax breaks is to, invite businesses, invite corporations to be headquartered so they can provide jobs for their constituents. Makes all the sense, but they don't really like it when they give these tax breaks to major Hollywood production companies, and then they notice that has a little bit of an impact on their electorate. So I think that part of the strategy by the GOP in Georgia, especially after the outcome of the 2020 general election, has been to just kind of rig the system in their favor, rather than maybe reconsider how unpopular their platform is. Maybe reconsider what they decide to run on, and maybe be a little less gross toward your own constituents. So maybe you'll be a little more desirable to them, but that's not what's happening. They'd rather just fix the system to their favor. And since I mentioned those Hollywood production companies, man, I knew they were getting a tax cut from Georgia. I didn't realize just how massive that tax cut is. So the Los Angeles Times had this great piece explaining why so many of these production companies have kind of remained silent or released kind of like a timid statement about it. For instance, Disney, Netflix, Amazon Studios, which clearly is not a fan of voting, as we've learned in recent weeks, and NBC Universal all either declined to comment or did not respond to the Los Angeles Times' request for comment on Georgia's elections overhaul. Georgia is attractive to studios because it offers ideal weather and tax credits of up to 30%. 30% for films, television shows, and digital features that are shot there. When you live in a system where profits come before everything else, including human lives, don't expect companies to do the right thing, to value our democratic process or our democracy. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe there's a company who's gonna stand up and say, no, we're moving our headquarters because we believe in protecting democracy. But I've yet to see that happen. And there's a very real reason why there's been silence from some of these massive corporations based there.
So do these tax cuts, do they also count for like online content? Because Georgia's like 3 hours that way. And I can be there very quickly. No, I'm just kidding. But it is, we do see all these big, companies that come in and out of there all the time. And everybody thinks like, oh, this is great. They're doing it in America instead of going up and shooting scenes in Canada. I remember when it all started over in Georgia, when you started having the TV shows and everything and movies start to film there, everybody was really excited and they thought this is just good-natured Hollywood keeping things in America is what they were talking about down here. But no, they're getting lots of money for it, and they're screwing your state out of money. They come in, basically use up your resources, and then they go back to the other coast where they're using up resources there as well, as along with the other corporations. It's just corporate hyenas, really. Just scavenging all across the country wherever they can, and the film industry, the TV industry really is not much different than the rest of them.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.